Hello everyone, this is Marco and welcome back to my channel. Today is a very special day as we are releasing 2 brand new RubberSaurs today. Can you believe that? 2 in one day. I am joined here today by Bradley. He's one of the members of the RubberSaurs team and he'll help me explain what all of this is all about. Before we start revealing what everything's all about, I would like to say that you will be able to purchase these new figures as soon as this video premiere ends. So what is it we are revealing? The first thing that I want to tell you about is a brand new thing called BAG O COMPIES. If you want a more in-depth explanation about what this is, I recommend you go and watch Bradley's video on his channel. Link is in the description and there's a little card for it here too. I'm going to give you a quick condensed version of Bradley's video, but let's start from the beginning, shall we? Once upon a time, I took a chance and brought Bradley on board for the RubberSaurs production. The first RubberSaurs that he made were the Compies, adorable 18th scale predators and perfectly scaled for use with the other RubberSaurs in the line, as well as the Hammond Collection and Mattel Jurassic main line. The Compies became the first to get a second run in the RubberSaurs line. Personally, we want to flood the world with Compsognathus. We want everyone to have the chance to build their own army of Compies. Today we're here to tell you about a different project. As members of Jurassic Park collecting community, people talk, and we listen. We're just 2 Yanks, a Brit and an Italian Brit in the RubberSaurs team, so there's a limit to what we can achieve. But a bag of Compies? We can handle that. A bag of Compies? Yes, remember those bags of green military dudes at your local toy store? Almost every kid had at least a bag of those back in the day growing up. So that's what we're making, but with Compies. It took some R&D, but we finally settled on a resin mixture that is both flexible and sturdy enough for them to stand on their 2 feet. The initial run of them will be green, although more colors may follow. By offering these Compies unpainted, we'll be able to offer more of them at a more affordable price. There are 10 different poses. Bradley separated each pose of Compie so he can try to get as even distribution as possible in each bag. Now you're probably thinking, how many do I get? 5? 10? Maybe 20? 50? How about 100? However many Compies you want, there's a bag of Compies for every budget. Again, if you want to learn more about the bag of Compies and see Bradley paint a bunch of them in different colors, I recommend you go and watch his video on his channel. Now let's talk about the second release. It involves Compies again, but also an AQUILOPS figure. Here I have brought Bradley to tell you more about it. Take it away, Bradley!
Well, there I was. Marco hits me up and says, "Do you want to make some red Compies?" "Yeah, I do." "And while we're at it, why don't we make an AQUILOPS too?" "Fuck yeah, people are gonna love this shit." And well, here we are, 3 red Compies and an AQUILOPS. What to do? Well, probably paint them. So these Compies and AQUILOPS were inspired by Jurassic World Renaissance. And so we shall paint them as such. There are 3 poses of Compsognathus here. They're different from the previous RubberSaurs Compsognathus. We're going to paint the ventral areas with dark blue-gray, leaving only the head, tail, and dorsal area red. We'll do this to all 3 Compies. That way they won't become jealous that only 1 or 2 of them is painted and turn on each other. We want a cohesive group of Compsognathus here. These Compsognathus are in 1/18th scale, like the previous RubberSaurs Compsognathus. So they're pretty small, and a little bit of paint is going to go a long way. Unlike the previous RubberSaurs Compsognathus, these ones are printed in 1 piece. So rather than having an extremely flexible rubbery body and stiff plasticky legs, these ones are all printed up from a resin that is flexible enough that they'll bend but not break, but rigid enough that they can stand. Once the ventral area on all 3 Compsognathus has been painted the dark blue-gray color, we're going to do some Harvest Orange dry brushing on the dorsal areas and the head. And again, we want to do this to all 3 Compsognathus. The dry brushing will help to bring out some of that texture that was sculpted in, as well as add just a little bit more variety to the color. Once we've finished dry brushing the dorsal areas on all of these Compsognathus, we're going to add an eye stripe. We never get a great look at the Compsognathus in Jurassic World Renaissance. but they appear to have an eye spot that same bluish gray color that their ventral areas are colored. And within that bluish gray eye spot is a tiny yellow eye. Well, proportionally it's big, but these are tiny compies, so their eye is also tiny. And once more, all 3 compies get that same eye spot for a total of 6 eye spots. Because we're going to do both sides, since we don't want a lopsided dinosaur, let alone 3 of them. With the eye socket blue-gray, all we need to do is add that tiny little yellow eye. It helps to have a steady hand for this part. So while painting Compsognathus eyes, alcohol and caffeine are a no-no. Alright, that was the last Compsognathus eye. Where's my scotch? Just kidding, we have claws to paint. Yes, even on a figure as tiny as a 1/18 Compsognathus, we're still going to paint the claws, including the dew claw. We're going to use a nice shiny gloss black for this, because it just strikes me as a good color for claws, particularly itty-bitty Compsognathus claws. Once all those claws are painted, this Compsognathus is going to be ready to appear in a Jeep commercial. Product placement! Well, even with their itty-bitty feet, these Compsognathus are capable of standing up on their own. But because they are so small, the slightest breeze can knock them over. And this can be a little bit of a pain in the ass if you want to display them on your shelf. So this time around, I'm including a tiny base, which you can optionally glue your Compsognathus onto, and that'll help them to be a little bit more breeze resistant. I'm painting the base with burnt umber, and once that's dry, we'll give it a nice dry brushing of chestnut for that classic Jurassic dirt look. You may notice wee tiny footprints on this base. Those line up, predictably, with the Compsognathus feet. If you wish to attach your Compsognathus to this base, just add a very, very small dab of superglue with the end of a toothpick, and then place the appropriate Compsognathus in its spot. Using the base is 100% optional, and if you'd like a more temporary as opposed to permanent solution to get your Compsognathus to stand up, I would just recommend using a very small dab of hot glue in place of the superglue. These Compsognathus are now breeze resistant, and shouldn't fall over when you walk by your display shelf. The previous RubberSaurs Compsognathus came with a cage, but the Renaissance Compsognathus are living wild and free, so they come with a wild and free buddy, the AQUILOPS. Despite its diminutive side, this AQUILOPS sports a ton of detail. There's a cluster of large scales just below the cheek along the jawline. And since we want to show off all that detail on this tiny little guy, we're going to hit it with a pavement wash. Once that wash is done, it's time to hit it with some warm buff dry brushing. This will show off the raised detail on the face and jawline, as well as covering up all that pavement where we don't need to be seeing it. Which generally means the ventral area of the neck as well. The next color we're going to use is yellow ochre. This is going to go over the face and the dorsal areas as well as the upper forelimbs and thighs. And we're applying this using a dry brush as well. The yellow needs to be kind of faint. This is after all an AQUILOPS and not a baby duck. Once we're happy with the application of the yellow on this AQUILOPS, it's time for the next color, which is chestnut. And it's applied largely the same way, just a little bit more faintly than the yellow. With the chestnut out of the way, we're going to mark out the raccoon-like tail stripes, which we're going to use jet black for. These stripes will be dragged all the way down the side of the tail. The stripe at the base of the tail doesn't make it all the way to the ventral apex, but the other stripes cover the entire circumference of the tail, forming bands, or rings, like a raccoon, or ring-tailed lemurs for you folks in other parts of the world who don't have trash pandas to contend with. With the tail bands done, I'm going to very lightly spray a little bit of burnt umber over the AQUILOPS hips. Now we'll just use a tiny bit of warm buff to paint the beak. With the beak painted, we'll use just a tiny bit of gloss black on the end of a toothpick to fill in the eyes. Now, isn't he just an adorable little guy? You know, I cannot in good conscience paint Compsognathus claws and not paint AQUILOPS claws. So we're going to go in with a little bit of dark granite on a toothpick and paint the AQUILOPS claws. And that is all there is to it.
A huge thank you goes to Bradley for making all of these. And a huge thanks goes to the patrons for supporting the RubberSaurs project. And I'd like to remind everyone that all of these things revealed today will be available as soon as this video premiere ends. So pretty much now. The links are in the description. Oh, and just before you go, I have new RubberSaurs releasing, hopefully in August. So stay tuned. Thanks so much for watching. Have a lovely day and stay safe.